Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. Picture this. You're not scrolling through your phone right now. Instead, you're trudging across the sun-baked plains of East Africa 2 million years ago. And here's the kicker. You're basically nobody. You're not strutting around like you own the place. You're scared. Actually, you're terrified most of the time. Lions see you as a potential snack. You're not out there hunting buffalo like some action hero. Nope, you're digging up roots, crunching on beetles, and if you're really lucky, gnawing on whatever scraps the big predators left behind. Sure, you're human, but so what? The world's got at least 6 different kinds of humans wandering around. There are your stocky Neanderthal cousins shivering through European winters, and those persistent Homo erectus folks who've been hanging around Asia forever. You're Homo sapiens, and honestly, there's nothing special about you yet. Your brain's pretty big, but so is a Neanderthal's. You've got some tools, but everyone's got tools. For nearly 2 million years, that's humanity's whole vibe. Just another animal, making about as much impact on the planet as your average jellyfish. Then something wild happens around 70,000 years ago. Something that flips the entire script and turns this forgettable ape into the planet's ultimate boss. What changed? What was our secret sauce that let us take over the world, plant a flag on the moon, and now has us tinkering with the very building blocks of life itself? That's the mind-blowing mystery at the center of Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. This isn't your dusty old history textbook. It's the story of USA, and it's become a global sensation, translated into over 65 languages, and devoured by everyone from world leaders to people just trying to figure out what the heck is going on with humanity. Harari, this brilliant thinker from Hebrew University in Jerusalem, doesn't just recite facts and dates. He pulls back the curtain on reality itself, showing us that nearly everything holding our civilization together is basically a really convincing story we've all agreed to believe. Today, I'm taking you on that journey. By the end, you won't just know more historia, you'll see the entire world differently. You'll understand the invisible puppet strings guiding your thoughts and desires. You'll discover why farming might have been humanity's greatest mistake, how stories literally built our world, and what might be coming next as we stumble toward becoming something beyond human. This is the story of how a scared, insignificant ape became you. Book summary. Let's start at the beginning, with a simple truth. For millions of years we were lunch, not the ones eating it. Our ancestors spent their days hunting small game and gathering berries, while constantly looking over their shoulders for things with bigger teeth. We weren't running the savanna, we were nervously trying to survive it. And get this, we weren't even alone as humans. Imagine hiking through a forest in Europe 30,000 years ago and bumping into a Neanderthal. They're not some grunting caveman from a cartoon. They're strong, intelligent, with a bigger brain than yours, perfectly adapted to survive the Ice Age. For a long time, they were absolutely crushing it. So what happened? Why did we survive while they disappeared? The answer is what Harari calls the cognitive revolution, and it kicked off about 70,000 years ago. Our brains didn't suddenly balloon in size. We didn't invent some super spear. The change was in how our brains were wired. Some random genetic mutation gave us the ability to think and communicate in completely new ways. Now, plenty of animals have language. A monkey can screech, "Watch out, lion," but a human? We could say, "This morning, down by the river, I saw a lion stalking some bison near the big rocks." That's a game changer. Suddenly we could plan elaborate ambushes and coordinate complex hunts. But here's where it gets interesting. Harari suggests our language might have evolved for an even simpler Riazona gossip. Yep, good old-fashioned gossip. Knowing who was sleeping with whom, who you could trust, and who was a backstabber mattered more to survival than knowing where the lions hung out. Gossip created tight-knit groups of about 150 people who could work together seamlessly. But neither planning nor gossip was our real superpower. The truly revolutionary feature of human language was this: we could talk about things that didn't exist at all. Think about it. You can't convince a chimp to hand over a banana by promising infinite bananas in chimp heaven. But humans? We fall for that all the time. This is the power of fiction, of imagination. With the cognitive revolution, legends, myths, and gods appeared for the first time. But more importantly, we invented what Harari calls imagined realities. What's a nation? It's not the dirt or the people. It's a story everyone agrees to believe. Money? Just paper and metal, until we all agree it has value. Laws, human rights, justice? None of these exist in nature. You can't dig them up or see them under a microscope. They're stories, incredibly powerful stories, that let millions of complete strangers cooperate. And that was our real superpower. A Neanderthal band could work together beautifully, but only with the handful of people they knew personally. Sapiens could cooperate with thousands of strangers because we all believed in the same gods, the same kings, the same tribe. When you've got hundreds of people working together like a well-oiled machine going up against smaller, less coordinated groups, game over. This is probably why wherever Sapiens went, other human species vanished. Did we deliberately wipe them out, or just outcompete them for resources? We don't know for sure, but the result's the same: we became the last human standing. Being alone as a species makes it easy to think we're special, that there's this huge gap between us and animals. But if Neanderthals had survived, would we still feel so superior? Maybe, Harari suggests. That's exactly why we got rid of Thema. They were too similar to ignore, but too different to accept. Armed with our new ability to cooperate through shared stories, we spread out from Africa and conquered the globe. But we left a trail of destruction. When the first humans reached Australia 45,000 years ago, it was filled with giant kangaroos, marsupial lions, and wombats the size of cars. Within a few thousand years, gone. The same thing happened in America. Mammoths, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, all vanished shortly after we arrived. This was the first wave of extinction, and we caused it. Long before we invented writing or the wheel, we hunter-gatherers had already become the deadliest species on the planet. So we conquered the world. But were we happier? This brings us to what Harari calls history's biggest fraud: the agricultural revolution. For most of our existence, we lived as hunter-gatherers. Then, about 12,000 years ago, we started doing something weird. We spent all our time and energy manipulating a few plant species, sowing seeds, watering crops, weeding fields, herding animals. The traditional story says this was brilliant. We figured out farming, settled down, and traded the harsh nomadic life for comfortable civilization. Harari says that's nonsense. Farming made life harder for most people, not easier. Farmers worked longer hours than foragers, ate worse food, and were way more vulnerable to famine and disease. Relying on one crop meant that if the rains didn't come or a fungus showed up, entire populations starved, and permanent villages became breeding grounds for epidemics. So who's to blame for this disaster? Not kings or priests. The real culprits were plants like wheat, rice, and potatoes. They domesticated us, not the other way around. Think about it from wheat's perspective. 10,000 years ago, wheat was just a wild grass in a small corner of the Middle East. Today it covers millions of square kilometers. How'd it pull that off? By getting humans to do all the work. We were living pretty well as hunter-gatherers. Then we started babying wheat, clearing rocks, weeding, hauling water. Our bodies, designed for running and climbing, paid the price with bad backs and arthritis. Wheat didn't get domesticated. We did. The word domesticate comes from the Latin word for house. It's us, not the wheat, who ended up trapped in houses. So why'd we do it? Harari calls it the luxury trap. The shift happened gradually. Let's plant a bit more, our ancestors thought, and our kids won't go hungry. In the short term, it worked. More food meant more babies. But those extra mouths ate up the surplus quickly. So we planted even more, worked even harder. The trap snapped shut. Sound familiar? It's like the modern person who takes a demanding job to make money and retire early. But by retirement age, they've got mortgages, kids in college, and a lifestyle they can't give up. Luxuries become necessities. The pursuit of an easier life often makes life harder. The agricultural revolution had another huge consequence: food surpluses. But that extra food didn't feed farmers. It fed a tiny elite who didn't work the fields of kings, priests, soldiers, artists, philosophers. For the first time, complex societies with strict hierarchies became possible. History, Harari notes, is what a few people were doing while everyone else was hauling water and plowing fields. These massive new societies needed more than food to function. They needed bigger stories to bind millions of strangers together. Over time, three potentially universal orders emerged: money, empires, and religion. First, money. Money might be the most successful story ever told. It's not reality, it's pure psychology. It works because we all believe it works. The dollar in your pocket has no actual value, you can't eat it, but you can trade it for food, because you trust that others will accept it. Money is the most universal system of trust ever created. It's more open-minded than any religion or culture. People who worship different gods or follow different kings will happily use the same money. For all his hatred of America, Osama bin Laden loved American dollars. Money works where gods and kings fail, because while religion asks you to believe in something, money just asks you to believe that other people believe in something. It's human tolerance perfected. The second unifier was empire. For the last 2,500 years, empires have been the most common form of government. Yes, empires conquered and destroyed, but they also spread ideas, technologies, and languages, creating new hybrid civilizations. The Romans said they brought peace and justice to barbarians. The Chinese claimed a divine mandate to educate humanity. The British carried the white man's burden. These were obviously justifications for conquest, but empires also absorbed much from the people they ruled. Today, almost all of us speak, think, and dream in languages shaped by empires. Modern India, for all its complicated feelings about British rule, is built on institutions the British left behind: a democracy, law, even cricket and tea. The third unifier was religion. Religion gave superhuman authority to our fragile social structures. It claimed our laws weren't human inventions, but came from an absolute supreme power. This put certain rules beyond question, providing social stability. Most ancient religions were local and exclusive. But in the first millennium before Christ, something new appeared: universal religions. Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam claimed their truths applied to everyone, everywhere. Merchants saw the world as one market. Conquerors saw one empire. Prophets saw one truth. These three forces: money, empire, and religiona, pushed humanity relentlessly toward unity. Then, 500 years ago, everything changed again with the scientific revolution. Like the cognitive revolution, this wasn't about discovering new things. Harari argues it was a revolution of ignorance. It started with one radical idea: we don't know the answers to our most important questions. Before this, traditions like Christianity and Islam claimed that everything important was already known, revealed in scriptures. Modern science, in contrast, is built on the Latin phrase ignoramusa, we do not know. It admits ignorance and uses observation and experiment to gain new knowledge. No theory is sacred. This willingness to admit ignorance made science far more dynamic than any previous tradition. But science alone wasn't enough. The real engine of modernity was a feedback loop between science, empire, and capitalism. The marriage of science and empire was crucial. European explorers didn't just conquer, they discovered. When Captain Cook sailed the Pacific, his ship carried botanists, astronomers, and artists alongside soldiers. Conquest of knowledge and conquest of territory became inseparable. Empires funded science. Science gave empires tools and justification. But the real fuel was capitalism. Capitalism isn't just an economic systema, it's almost a religion. Its core belief? Growth. Pre-modern economies were zero-sum gamesa, a fixed pie, where my bigger slice meant your smaller one. Capitalism introduced a revolutionary idea. The pie can grow for everyone. How? Through credita, building the present at the expense of the future, trusting that future resources will be more abundant. This trust created credit. Credit brought growth. Growth strengthened trust in the future, opening the door for more credit. Adam Smith formalized this in The Wealth of Nations, proposing that selfish profit-seeking creates collective wealth. Greed is good. My profit becomes your profit. The key rule? Reinvest profits to increase production. This created perpetual growth that transformed the world. This capitalist engine, guided by science, powered European empires in the Industrial Revolution, essentially a revolution in energy conversion. We learned to harness vast, cheap energy from coal, oil, and atoms. We were no longer limited by the sun and plant growth. Production exploded. But this created a problem. Who's going to buy all this stuff? The answer: consumerism. Frugality, once virtuous, became almost shameful. The rich were told, invest. The rest of us were told, buy. For the first time, religion's followers actually did what they were asked. But progress has a dark side. Capitalism and empire brought the horrors of the slave trade, driven not by hatred, but by cold greed. Industrial agriculture has subjected billions of animals to unprecedented cruelty. And it's brought the most profound social revolution: the collapse of family and community. For millions of years, we lived in small, tight communities that were our welfare system, health insurance, and emotional support. Over the last 2 centuries, the state and market have taken over. They made us a deal: become individuals. You don't need family or community. We'll take care of you. We accepted. Individual liberation is wonderful, but it comes at a cost. We live in an increasingly lonely world of dissolving communities, feeling alienated and threatened by impersonal powers. To fill this void, the state and market created new, imagined communities, nations and consumer tribesa to give us belonging. So, after all these revolutions, after 70,000 years transforming from insignificant apes to planetary rulers, we must ask, are we happier? Did all our wealth translate to contentment? The answers aren't what you'd expect. One view says yes, obviously we're wealthier, healthier, safer than ever. But as we've seen, new powers don't necessarily mean better lives. Peasants worked harder and ate worse than foragers. The romantic view says we're less happy, alienated from our natural state in a cold, mechanistic world that can't satisfy our deepest needs. The truth's more complicated. Research shows happiness doesn't depend on objective conditions like wealth or health. It depends on the gap between our conditions and our expectations. When things improve, our expectations inflate, so even dramatic improvements can leave us unsatisfied. Mass media and advertising constantly deplete our contentment by showing us standards we can never reach. But the most radical answer comes from biology. Our happiness is determined not by external events, but by internal biochemistry in nerves, neurons, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin. Some people are born with cheerful brain chemistry, others with gloomy. Historical events barely touch our biochemistry. A medieval peasant building his hut and a modern banker closing a deal might experience similar happiness levels, because their brains work the same way. From this perspective, history barely matters. If happiness is just biochemistry, then the key is manipulating our brain chemistry, and that's exactly where we're headed. This brings us to the final, mind-bending chapter, the end of Homo sapiens. For 4 billion years, life evolved through natural selection. Now we're replacing natural selection with intelligent design. But the designer isn't some Goda, it's us. This is happening 3 ways. First, biological engineering. We're not just breeding anymore, we're using genetic engineering to rewrite life's code. Scientists have created glowing green rabbits with jellyfish genes. They've engineered super smart mice. They're planning to resurrect Neanderthals and woolly mammoths. We're on the verge of re-engineering not just our bodies but our minds, emotions, and desires. Second, cyborg engineering, merging organic and inorganic parts. Many of us are already bionic with glasses or pacemakers. But we're close to direct brain-computer interfaces. What happens to identity and memory when our minds link directly to the internet and each other? Third, engineering completely inorganic life, artificial intelligence. The Human Brain Project is trying to recreate a complete human brain inside a computer. If successful, life will escape organic boundaries for the first time in 4 billion years. These aren't science fiction fantasies. This is our reality. We're approaching a singularity where all concepts giving meaning to our world, love, hate, man, womana, may become irrelevant. The future masters of the world will be more different from us than we are from Neanderthals. While we and Neanderthals are at least human, our successors may be godlike. In 1818, Mary Shelley published Frankenstein, which has become our central myth. It warns that if we play God, we'll create a monster that destroys us. We like this story because it suggests we're the best possible beings, and any attempt to improve us will fail. But what if Frankenstein could create something truly superior, something that will look at us as condescendingly as we look at Neanderthals? The next stage won't just bring technological changes, but fundamental transformations in consciousness and identity. We're among the final generations of Homo sapiens, facing one last terrifying question. We're acquiring godlike powers of creation and destruction. The quest to defeat death is now science's flagship project, and creating superhumans is riding on its coattails. Since stopping the quest for immortality is impossible, stopping the creation of superhumans is also impossible. The only thing we can do is influence the direction. And since we might soon engineer our desires too, the real question isn't, what do we want to become? But, what do we want to want? Harari ends not with answers, but with a warning. For 70,000 years, Homo sapiens transformed from an insignificant animal into the planet's master and the ecosystem's terror. We've gone from canoes to spaceships, but nobody knows where we're going. We're more powerful than ever, but we have little idea what to do with that power. We've become self-made gods, accountable to no one. His final question echoes through time, a question for all of us. Is there anything more dangerous than dissatisfied and irresponsible gods who don't know what they want? Commentary. So that's the breathtaking journey of Sapiens. This book doesn't just teach historia, it reshapes your understanding of what being human means. When you finish it, you feel like you've been given new eyes. The world suddenly looks different, like seeing the source code behind reality. The most powerful idea for me is imagined realities. Realizing that our entire world of nations, economic systems, laws, Godsa, is built on stories, is both unsettling and empowering. It's unsettling because it shows how fragile civilization is, all depending on continued belief in the same fictions. But it's empowering because it means the world today isn't natural or inevitable. We created it with stories, and if we collectively agree to tell different stories, we can change it. The injustices, hierarchies, and suffering aren't written in stone or DNA. They're written in our shared imagination. This book isn't just intellectual exercise, it's a call for species-wide self-awareness. It forces us to confront the consequences of our success. We became planetary masters, but at what cost to other animals and the planet? We built unimaginable empires and economies, but did it bring happiness? That leads to what I think is the most urgent takeaway. The story isn't over. We're living in the most pivotal moment in life's history on Earth. We're the generation replacing natural selection with intelligent design. The decisions we make about genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and life's definition will shape the future for billions of years. So how can we apply this wisdom to our lives? I think it starts with 3 simple but profound actions. First, question one story. Pick one imagined reality you take for granted: a money's value, your national identity's importance, or your definition of success. You don't have to reject it, just see it for what it is: a story. Recognize it's powerful not because it's objectively true, but because we all believe it. This awareness is the first step toward intellectual freedom. Second, see the world from other perspectives. Harari constantly asks us to think from a Neanderthal's viewpoint, or wheat's, or a factory-farmed chicken's. This is powerful empathy practice. Next time you eat, consider that food story. When you hear about political conflicts, try understanding the competing stories both sides tell themselves. This broadens understanding and cultivates compassion. Third, reflect on your own happiness. Don't just chase the next promotion, purchase, or fleeting pleasure. Ask yourself deeper questions this book raises. What gives your life meaning? Are your expectations helping or hurting your contentment? Are you enslaved by your biochemistry, or can you observe your feelings without being controlled? This self-inquiry is what ancient philosophers meant by know thyself. In the end, Sapiens is more than history. It's a mirror. It shows where we came from, how we came to believe what we believe, and the immense, frankly, terrifying power we now hold. The story of Homo sapiens is ending, and a new story is beginning. We're the authors of that next chapter. The question is, what kind of story will we write? That was the book summary of Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, by Yuval Noah Harari. We've hit the highlights today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read it yourself, in those quiet moments when a particular story or simple phrase hits you unexpectedly. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, grab a copy. Because reading it isn't just learning it's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself and your daily life. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.